For our next session, we have with us Ms. Sai Swaroopa Aiyer. Ms. Sai Swaroopa Aiyer is an Indian author who has published in the mythological genre. Her notable books are Abhaya, Avishi, Draupadi, and Mauri. She has an MBA from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, and formerly was an investment professional. Novelist, editor, and curator, Ms. Swaroopa is the author of 5 novels, all based on female protagonists from ancient India. She is currently working on a self-help series for aspiring authors. She is here with us today to speak about the icons of Indian history. Over to you, ma'am.
Shri Matre Namaha, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Shri Ramajayam. Namaste everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. I would like to begin by conveying my note of appreciation for such a wonderful gathering that appreciates national literature. Celebrating literature has been the way of our life. And just now I heard to this very wonderful, beautiful Tamil speech by the preceding speaker, and I have seen the galaxy of intellectuals and speakers that have adorned this literature fest. So, Nina Rai ma'am, thank you for being here. Yes, my topic about historical icons of India, I think it's a topic that we can keep talking for our whole lives. Not a single session, not a day, not a week, not a month. And our whole lifetime wouldn't be enough to actually appreciate the depth of our history, Indian history. So the itihasa, I like the word itihasa because itihasa teaches us to learn from our ancestors. Right? The storytelling has been there ever since humanity evolved. Even when the man was living in the caves in that primitive form, his ancestors had educated him in the form of these wonderful cave paintings. And gradually script evolved. Along with that, civilization evolved. And we started preserving these wonderful stories. Rishis could manage to document the underlying philosophy as our civilization evolved. And through the writings of those rishis, we learn how to face our life in a better manner. And that is what itihasa teaches us. So history, when we say history from a very Western perspective, it is all about some war between some king with another king, some country with another country, some country invading another country in some year. Okay, that's done. So the country B gets angry with country A, and some second war happens in some other year. And as school students, we used to just note down the years, this war, that year, that war this year, and have a list of wars and whoever died, and just used to vomit it all out in the exam paper, and then by the next year we would forget what happened when. Why? History used to be one of the most boring subjects in our curriculum, right? So I come from a place where fortunately we were taught good history, good amount of history, not the same old stuff that this one, we've been, a lot of people have been learning. For that, I'm really thankful to people who designed the pedagogy where I studied. So I got to study about the South Indian history, about the Cholas, Pallavas, and the conflicts between the Pallavas and Chalukyas. And then comes the medieval period, the Vijayanagara, the Kakatiyas, and then the Vijayanagara, and the whole galaxy of North Indian kings. I had the fortune of studying that in a curricular manner, and then when my interest got rekindled, I could search for more and more. And I personally also don't consider Ramayana and Mahabharata as mythology. Mythology is a term invented by early Christian scholars to denote the past of ancient religions, right? What they call as paganism. Even that is a derogatory term, but the ancient religions from the West, call it Nordic, Celtic, all the civilizations, they also had very beautiful connect with the nature. And all the stories that these cultures had preserved were given one term, that is mythology. That is the past of false religions. Some, fairy tales, even fairy tales as, fairies existed in according to some civilization, so we should not use that as a derogatory word. But some kind of mythical, made up tales which these ancient primitive people made up for their survival or whatever. So mythology is that kind of, derogatory term. And we, being a thriving civilization, thriving Hindu civilization, I proudly use the word Hindu, everything is itihasa for us. So before I get into this very, very wide topic, which I just hope to narrow it down to fit into the time constraints, I want to talk about the age-old art of storytelling. The Vedas have wonderful, wonderful stories. And when I say stories, it doesn't mean that they are false. It means that the rishis who have documented those stories have seen much more than just the physical events. Physical events is documentation, like just how I said, in history, how we used to study about this king, which year, which war, and all that. It's documentation. But a Rishi Vakya or a Rishi Vangmulam is about much more. Like in Hinduism, we have 6 schools, the Shad Darshanas, Yoga, Sankhya, and others. Right? Vaiseshika, Nyaya, everything. Rishis find a way to look at past instances from each of these schools of thought, which is why we have multiple interpretations of each of our Puranic Itihasika incidents. Right? So, for example, a very small example, in the Mahabharata, we have the Swarga Arohana Parva. The Swarga Arohana Parva, Yudhisthira is the only person who reaches the heaven with the body. I mean, the way we are told the story in a very summarized manner, right? The Pandavas, they want to ascend to the Swarga with bodies, but the first Draupadi falls down because then Yudhishthira says, okay, because she was more attached to Arjuna and, not to the rest of us as much as she was attached to Arjuna. That's why it is. And then Sahadeva, some other reason, he was proud of his wisdom or something. Nakula, yeah, he was attached to his looks. Arjuna, he was attached to his fame. Bhima, you're attached to food. So those, and when we listen it in a summarized manner, right, it occurs to us like, sorry? Yeah, I'm audible now? Yeah. So when we listen to that summarized manner, yes, we may think that, oh, Yudhishthira, he is, just like he's poking holes into everybody's character this way. How great is he, and what is so perfect about, losing your kingdom in the gambling match, and then everything leading up to that horrible war. That's the reaction that we get, right? And the way Vyasa has written it, if we actually, go to the depths of that parva, it is about, they are actually ascending towards heaven, towards Swarga. And to move to Swarga with the body means that the body should not have any attachments, any attachments. There should be nothing in the earth that will pull back the body. The body is Panchabhautika. The body has 5 elements, the Panchabhutas. So you have to have, cut off relationships with any of these aspects on the earth, because of which the Panchabhutas are trying to claim your body. So that's why when Draupadi says, it's natural for Draupadi to have, more affinity to Arjuna, because he was the one who actually won the Swayamvara. It's very natural. But respecting the same nature, you give up your body, then you'll go to Swarga effortlessly, rather than struggling with this body. Right? That is how yogic school of thought views that incident. And this was, this is just a small example that I wanted to give, just to demonstrate the depth of itihasa versus history, the westernized documented history. Right? Same thing, like Nakula, Sahadeva, all of us are attached to very, very, relevant things. Valor, fame, food, everything is very relevant in life. It's not a weakness. Nothing was a weakness. Right? But they are relevant to life. And when you want to pass to the next stage, you have to give up. Or just give up the body, it's easier that way. Right? It's not a flaw. It's not a flaw in the Pandavas. It is only an attachment. And give up that attachment, you attain the Swarga. And what happens to Yudhisthira? What happens to Yudhisthira is, his attachments are not worldly. His attachments are to the higher dharma. So, never in the war, or even when he became the emperor, or even when he played the game, his attachments were never selfish. He was not after fame. He was not after riches. He was not after kingdom. He was not after any of the attachments that he had. But he had attachment to his belief of dharma. Dharma is something which will protect the good. Good people will get rewarded and bad people will get punished. That was the belief that he has lived his whole life, which is why imagine his shock when he goes to Swarga, and who does he see in the Swarga? Kauravas. And that's when he really loses it. And we see Yudhisthira angry at very less number of places in the Mahabharata. And that is one place he totally loses it and gives a piece of his mind to the Devas, Indra included. Is this why I have lived a life of dharma, so that I'll see my enemy coming to the Swarga before me? And that is when Indra educates him. So that knowledge, your knowledge of dharma, your relevance of dharma was limited to that plane of life which you lived in the earth. Yes, you did your best. But here, you have to leave even that attachment of what you understood as dharma, what you understood as adharma. Even that is an attachment. You can come to Swarga with this body, but you cannot settle down here with that attachment. And that's when Yudhisthira voluntarily gives up and attains this. So this beautiful interpretation is the way the yogic school of thought looks at that historical incident. Now, tell me how beautiful it looks. It doesn't look personal. It doesn't look like somebody is trying to poke holes at someone else's character. It has learning for us, all of us, right? About, yes, attachments are great. We need to have goals. We need to pursue them. That's when we attain a peak. Then we have some obstacles. We fight our battles. We attain the peak of our life. Then we need to say, yes, it's enough. And go to the next stage, the ashrama dharma. The lessons of, whole of ashrama dharma come through the Mahabharata. Whereas, again, yes, that is how itihasa remains our companion. So, vis-a-vis history, when you read itihasa, it makes you grow up. life gives you its own lessons. Our life, each of us face our lives. We have different problems, different challenges. We come up with our own solutions, with our learning, with what our parents have taught us, what our teachers have taught us. So we apply our own learning, but when armed with the knowledge and wisdom of itihasa, we know it makes us grow up. It enables us to have a more matured outlook of life. And then life has its own way of educating us. We go back to reread the itihasa, we are a changed people then. And that the same Mahabharata will unfold with many newer lessons in your next reading. So that is the beauty of Indian storytelling, Indic storytelling of Indic itihasa. And the same Mahabharata has these beautiful stories in Vanaparva. So Vanaparva, of course, Sabha Parva has that whole ordeal of dice game, the whole Vastra Harana and everything. And then Vanaparva is where we learn lessons of how people should deal with the low points in life. There, Yudhisthira meets these rishis who tell him the stories of Savitri, of Nala Damayanti, of Ramayana, Rama Upakhyana, as it is called. And there, Markandeya Rishi teaches Yudhisthira this very wonderful lesson of gender balance. So it happens. Do I have time? A little bit more? Yeah, okay. So yes, I was supposed to start on the closer history, but this is another beautiful incident which I really want to talk about. So in the Vanaparva, Draupadi is abducted by Jayadratha. Jayadratha is the brother-in-law of Duryodhana. He abducts Draupadi, and then the Pandavas come within no time. They fight with Jayadratha. They rescue Draupadi. It happens within a span of few hours. And they are back in the ashrama. And somehow Yudhisthira is really, really pained. So that attempt of abduction is, paining him. And there is a Sarandri of Draupadi, a maid, basically, a maid who helps Draupadi in her daily course. She would have spoken something very inappropriate about this whole incident. And that keeps paining Yudhisthira. And then Markandeya visits them. Rishi Markandeya, then Yudhisthira asks Rishi Markandeya as to, this happened with us. Our wife was kidnapped by the enemy again, as if whatever happened to us was not enough. Our wife was kidnapped and people have started speaking stupid things about that incident. So how can we live? I mean, how will our reputation be after this incident? And that's when Markandeya tells him the story of Ramopakhyana. And very interestingly, in Markandeya's version of Ramayana, because Markandeya Rishi is a Chiranjeevi, he has seen many kalpas. Right? Many kalpas. So many Ramayanas he has seen. Many yugas, many repetitions of Ramayanas he has seen. So in his version of Ramayana, the story takes on the Rama kills Ravana, and when Sita comes and Rama asks her as to, how can I accept you that now that you have stayed for 1 year, you have lived in the house of Ravana, how can I accept you back? That is the moment when gods appear and say, what the hell is wrong with you, Rama? Why are you speaking like this? All the gods. There's no Agni Pravesha episode in Markandeya's Ramopakhyana. It says, all the gods, each of them, they nicely, if I have to use a crude word, they scold Rama without any. That is one incident. So that is when Markandeya says, just as how ridiculous it sounds when somebody casts an aspersion on Sita's character, it is equally ridiculous to cast an aspersion on Draupadi's character. You don't worry about what will happen to your reputation and all that, you know. Just as we worship Rama today, people will also, you know, kind of glorify you, think of you in a great manner. Then Yudhisthira, he doesn't want to be looked at as somebody who doubts his wife, you know. It's like, no, you have misunderstood me, please. I am not casting an aspersion on Draupadi's character. She's great. It's because of her that, you know, we were finally free. But does she deserve whatever she is facing because of what we have done? And that's when Markandeya tells the story of Savitri. And Savitri comes from a slightly different civilization where the society is very liberal. She is a Madra princess and from the kingdom of Madra. Ashwapati is the king, and when she grows and comes to the age of, you know, getting wedded, Ashwapati calls her and says, maybe because I am your father, or maybe because of your true greatness, I am not able to find a groom worthy of you. Whoever I see, I feel, okay, he is not worthy of my daughter. My daughter is more knowledgeable than him. My daughter is more braver than him. My daughter is more beautiful. You know, so I'm not able to find a man who I think will match you, which is why you take a call. You take soldiers along with you, tour the country, meet princes, meet kings, meet rishis, meet every eligible person in this land, and you take the decision of whom to marry. That was, you know, before 2000 BCE. 2000 BCE is the Mahabharata war time, roughly, even that is debatable. And Savitri happened like centuries before Mahabharata. So that is the way, the liberal nature of Indian society, where a father could freely tell his daughter, yo, go on a tour and choose a man of your choice. You know, do we have that freedom today? I'm not saying as a, you know, as a woman, I'm not saying, but fathers today, do we trust the society to be so safe for our daughters? No, right? There lies the learning of how liberal Indian society was, that a girl like Savitri, a princess of a small kingdom like Savitri, had the full freedom to go tour all over India and choose a husband of her choice. And she was so knowledgeable, she was not enamored with kingdoms or richness or the prosperity or anything, but she chose Satyavanta, who was living in exile at that time. And we all know the story of Savitri. As to, you know, he was cursed to die 12 months after their marriage. And he actually, Yamadharmaraja comes to claim Satyavanta, and Savitri engages him in a very intellectual debate, at the end of which she tricks him with a boon and wins back Satyavanta. And Markandeya says, the way you have, like Rama, you have protected Draupadi from a danger, and like Savitri, Draupadi has also saved you in the during the Sabha incident, the gambling incident. Had she not been there, you would have remained the dasas of Kauravas. But because she intervened, she voiced her dissent, she questioned the whole game of the validity of the whole game. Dhritarashtra was forced to annul that game. She saved you like Savitri saved Satyavanta. And here lies the beautiful lesson of gender balance as to how a husband and wife have to step up when one person is, you know, facing that low, whether it is of morality, whether it is of, you know, physical strength, or whether it is about financial strength. When one person is facing that low, the other person has to step up. That is the way our rishis interpret itihasa, our history. So that's another beautiful incident. So I shall take another 5-10 minutes. So yeah. Okay. 5 minutes. So yes, most of my talk, I guess I have only demonstrated about how India views history rather than, icons from Indian history. Because each icon from our history, I would, I'm just taking some time to talk to you about one very compelling Indian protagonist, woman protagonist from our history. Most of us would not have heard about her. She is from the Rig Veda. Her name is Queen Vishpala. She is mentioned in the Rig Veda. She lost her leg. She loses her leg in a battle called Kela's battle. And she is fitted a prosthetic leg by the twin gods Ashwinas, the Ashwini Kumaras. They give her a prosthetic leg. I say a prosthetic leg because the leg was made of metal. It was not a miraculous incident where a god does magic and the leg comes back. Puranas have a number of incidents like that, and we respect each of those incidents. But this particular story, it's mentioned that the leg was made of ayasa. Now, whether ayasa is copper or iron, it's, that's being debated, ma'am. Whether it's, because both of them have the, capacity to attract a magnet or something like that. So whether it's copper or iron, again, I leave it to the historians. But yes, even if it's iron, it's even better because that proves that we had iron much earlier than what historians claim as Iron Age. And some people who want to reconcile with the present history maintain that it is copper. It can be anything, but the fact remains that we knew of prosthesis. Prosthesis was an idea that took place in India, that took birth in India, in the Rig Veda. And I came across this story, when I was doing some other research, I came across this story in an Israeli medical journal. And when I was doing research, I was, kind of proud of myself, proud of the way my parents brought me up, telling me all stories, and proud of the way my grandparents inculcated reading. And I used to think that, okay, I have read everything that I can read. And so it was mortifying to find this story, which I did not know of. I'm talking about 2012-13. And it was even more mortifying that I was reading about it from a foreign medical university document and not from any Indian site, which, compelled me to, explore writing a novel about Vishpala. It talks about, the Rig Veda talks about female power. It talks about women fighting, women ruling, and it also talks about scientific breakthroughs like prosthesis. Right, and I think I should conclude here by mentioning the way, if we learn the way to study our history, like the way our rishis have interpreted, if we inculcate that Indic way of looking at history, our learning and the way we face our individual lives, our social lives, and even the larger part of our lives in a much effective, I won't say problem-free, but we would be elevating ourselves, our society, and our country to the next level when we learn the right lessons from our itihasa. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for explaining the idea behind history, why the usage of the word mythology is wrong, and shedding light on Indian history. Now, Shri Bharat Gopu, MD Indo Analytics, will felicitate Ms. Sai Swaroopa.